You can love your spouse very much, you can love your kids very much. But after 10 months of being in the same room with them, or at best having two adjoining rooms, right? The bigger families will get like two adjoining rooms and you'll have 3 or 4 or 5 people in each room. I don't want to see him again.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways that people's lives changed on and after the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking with people in Israel and around the world about how the devastating attack by Hamas has shifted, shaped, and changed them. To learn more about our podcast, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. I'm pleased to be joined today by Aryeh Dobuler. Aryeh moved to Israel from America with his family in 1990 when he was 6 years old. Although he was initially disappointed to learn that he could not ride a camel to school, he came to love his new country. Aryeh and his 3 brothers have all served in combat units in the IDF. One of Aryeh's brothers is currently in Gaza. Just before October 7th, Aryeh's unit was disbanded, so he was not called up for reserve duty in the current war. Eager to find another way to serve, Aryeh started a Facebook group shortly after the war broke out called Jerusalem Helping Others. Through the group, Aryeh facilitates an enormous volunteer effort to support soldiers and evacuees in and around Jerusalem. Hi, Aryeh. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to start by asking you to introduce yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? How long have you been in Israel?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. I've been here for 34 years. Moved when I was 6 years old from Far Rockaway, New York. I lived for 2 years in Jerusalem and then decided to move to a yeshuv called Beit El, which is about 30 minutes north of Jerusalem. That's where I grew up. I work in social media management for small businesses, and I run twice a year a book sale, a passion of mine. So for years prior to the war, I had always donated to lone soldiers, youth at risk, various different people who just couldn't afford or didn't have access to the books that I had. I had served in a combat unit in reserves for 22 years. I was released from that 4 months before October 7th. The Army then was heading towards shrinking, and I was a infantry unit, like the Scouts, attached to an armored tank battalion. And the Army, to save money, was starting to close various different tank battalions, and they closed our tank battalion and disbanded the unit. So since I was over 40, they said, well, thank you very much for your service, and you're done. October 7th happened. And that Motzi Shabbos already, like I called up my company commander and I said, I'm packing up my bags. I know you guys are going to go into Gaza and I'm coming. I had been to Gaza already before. The first time, in fact, that I was in Gaza, my company commander was 13 years old. So I was the one with experience in the unit. He's 27 now or 28 or something like that, whatever he is. And he said to me, you don't have an emergency call up. You don't have a unit to go back to. Like, where are you going exactly? The unit, when it had been disbanded, the younger people had been put in various different other units, and the older people were just released. They weren't on the Army rosters anymore. And he says to me, I know that you're rearing to go. He says, you are a man of action. Those are the words he uses. You're a man of action. And that was at the minute that he said that I already knew exactly what needed to be done. I had been part of previous wars before and seen what happened, and what always happens is that there's always a tremendous rush. It's a fantastic thing Jewish people have, a tremendous rush to give, to donate, to volunteer. But those energies and those thoughts are not necessarily channeled in the right way. So, for example, I remember when we were by Gaza, you would get truckloads of gift packages from home, chocolates and cakes and letters and games, whatever it is. 90% of it went into the garbage. I mean, it was sweet. The intention is incredible. If each soldier individually was getting a package, maybe that would be great. But the trucks don't deliver it to each soldier. They find the first unit that they could find, they unload everything, and they skedaddle. Obviously, it's a war zone. You don't want to stick around. We would say to them, we said, we're only 100 soldiers and you're giving us stuff for 5,000 soldiers, take it down the line. They're like, no, just dropping it off here. So I knew the same thing would happen here. I knew that people would just want to give, but it was not necessarily A, what evacuees and soldiers needed, and B, that it wasn't necessarily getting to the places that it needed to. So the initial first days of the war, I went to all the different hotels that were hosting evacuees. And I saw, again, that hundreds of people were going and crowding the lobbies and bringing boxes and bags full of clothing and essentials and whatever it is. But I didn't bring anything. I went over to them and I said, hi, my name is Aryeh. I don't work for any organization. Tell me what you need. Don't say clothing. Be as specific as you need. Tell me that you need pants size 36, that you need this shampoo. Tell me exact numbers, and that's what I'm going to bring you. And that's what I brought them. And I would see, again, truckloads just come over, bring them clothing. They'd pick through the clothing that they wanted. And then the rest of it would get thrown out. Now, people again would say, but why is it thrown out? Why doesn't it go to somebody who needs it? That's a great question. Do you have a truck to come? Are you taking your truck and going hotel to hotel and picking up the things that they don't need? To within my abilities, I try to say, okay, I see that there are 5 boxes here of clothing that they don't need. I'm going to see if I can get it to Chabad of Katamon, or I'm going to, but that was just one person at a certain place at a certain time.
So let me pause there for a second and say that it sounds like you sort of immediately went from the mentality of a combat soldier to the mentality of logistics, right? You were doing logistics.
Correct.
Was that difficult? On an emotional level, was it difficult to let go of this previous role and jump into this new thing?
It was difficult to do because people ask, by the way, they say, is it hard to be a combat soldier? I said, it's not easy, but it's even harder to be the parents of 4 combat soldiers. So my 3 brothers all served in combat units. My youngest brother right now is in Gaza for the 3rd time. And actually now I'm experiencing what everybody else experienced when I would be in various different combat situations, which is very strange for me because I never experienced that before. Because when you're in it, yes, it's scary. Yes, it could be this and that, but you're in it, you're focused. When you're out of it and you're just sort of checking your phone every 5 minutes or checking the news and seeing what's happening, that is a whole different ballgame. Within the Army itself, I wasn't in logistics. I wasn't part of the logistics part of our company, but I definitely would help them out. I was the kind of guy I would bring chocolates. I would go around to different guard stations and give out chocolates, which they always thought was funny because I'm not coming from the outside and doing that. I'm there with them, or I would make coffee for them. I know what it's like to be there for 8 hours at this guard post, and it gets lonely and it gets boring, and it's a little pick-me-up. So I sort of always had that mentality, and that mentality, I would say, comes from my mother. May her memory be blessed. She passed away 7 years ago. But she was very much the kind of person who was always out there taking care of people, making sure that everybody had whatever they needed. And she was very organized. So I got that from her. And the switch was not easy. I actually called up a lot of different officers. It wasn't just my company commander. I started writing to a bunch of different officers, which is what then made my platoon commander write to me and say, Aryeh, they're very excited to do this. Or not excited, eager rather. But he says, Jerusalem needs armed citizens, armed and trained guy. He says, I know you're going to figure out what to do. He said, you've done your share. Now it's our turn. These are all younger guys. Of course, saying that he didn't know that it was going to be going on for such a long time. Nobody did. It wasn't easy doing that switch, but you go to wherever you're needed, not what you want to do. That's the bottom line. It's the bottom line also of all the donations and stuff. Like I said, you don't donate what you want to donate. You donate what is needed.
So this is a really interesting point, and I want to amplify it a little bit because there has been such an enormous impulse to serve and to volunteer, donate, et cetera, give. And you've been very honest with people on your page. You should tell us about your page, but I've noticed that you're very honest with people about this is very well intended, but it is not needed. And in fact, it might do some harm. Could you talk first about what you do on this page, this Facebook page, how you manage people's need to help even when they don't really know how to do it?
I started a Facebook page pretty early on called Jerusalem Helping Others. And the intention there, again, was to have a place that would organize all the various different volunteer needs with those that are wanting to volunteer, with those that have questions about volunteering, etc. The initial stages was a lot more about basic logistics. When I say basic logistics, because they left their homes with pretty much nothing. So shampoos and toothbrushes and clothing and whatever it was. And then afterwards, it's a lot more about maintaining their mental health. Just this morning, somebody sent me a message and said this woman from the States had hand knitted some puppets, like a whole lot of them, and could I give them out? Again, the intention is very nice and sweet, and I might be able to find some that are interested in that, but it wasn't requested. And there are a lot of things that are requested and that are needed that those don't get responded to. Those things aren't fulfilled because people are busy giving the things they want to. So another thing, for example, is people will contact me a lot about, hi, we're from the States. We want to sponsor an ice cream truck for the evacuees, or we want to sponsor a pizza night, or we want to send cakes. Our shul is baking. We're all baking cakes. There's 40 cakes from some community in New Jersey or Iowa, and you're going to send it to Israel. Like, it's a sweet intention. Of course, nobody has any bad intentions about it, but it's sort of misspent money, energy, time, and then also it takes away from the things that I'm actually doing that are needed and asked for. And now I have to worry about, okay, this woman just made 40 scarves. Like, I got to figure out what to do with these 40 scarves because I don't want to throw them out. So it takes a lot of time and effort from me. So again, people mean well. It's a great intention. You just need to figure out how to focus that.
Have you been able to redirect people?
So I've been able to redirect some people. Some people get upset. You don't control the volunteering. I'm like, well, of course I'm not. I'm trying to control volunteering, and I'm not trying to. If you came here and you said you want to be a medical clown, go be a medical clown. I'm sure that is something that's needed someplace, or whatever it is, but I don't specifically have a request for a medical clown. So for example, the ice cream truck, that I told people, I said, that's a big waste of money. People will say to me, but I asked some kid at a hotel if they would like an ice cream truck, and the kid said yes. So of course they're saying yes. But the parents then come to me literally crying. I've had multiple parents come to me crying hysterically saying, who's paying for my kids' dental bills? There's no funds for that. Everybody who's donating money, nobody's donating money for their dental bills. And yet they've never in their lives eaten as many candies and sweets and cookies and cakes as they are now. Never. So again, the intention is good, but people will get upset sometimes when obviously I don't say it in a harsh way. I'll say, hey, thank you very much. It's not needed. Maybe you could sponsor this or that. Like, that's something that's needed. Or they're like, nah, we're not really into that. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I thought you wanted to help. So again, I'm not trying to be negative here. The overwhelming majority of people are, of course, fantastic, phenomenal, and want to help and are happy to be directed to the right thing. But yeah, you'll have people who will get upset and say, like, but our class project is to do X, Y, and Z, and we don't want to do anything else. Okay, but your class project is not what's needed here or wanted.
So you're managing a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the relationship management. And I mean, management feels like the wrong word because you've developed real community and connection among the evacuees who are still here. Can you tell us about those communities and some of the bonds you formed?
So most of the people, initially, it was a mix of both the South and the North. Right now in Jerusalem, I can only tell you what is happening in the hotels here. Most, I'd say probably 80 to 85% of the Southern people have left the hotels, whether it's because they've returned home or gone to rentals. They don't have a place to go back or whatever it is. So the vast majority of those that have stayed are people from up north, places like Shlomi, Kiryat Shmona, different places like that. And I remember the very first day that I started in the various hotels that I went to, they all repeated the same two questions over and over and over. And it was the kids that were asking me this, and it was the adults that were asking me this. And that is, one, are we safe? Right? Because you have to remember those first days, people didn't know what the heck was happening. Maybe they're going to overrun the whole country and who knows what. So are we safe? And the second thing was, are you going to forget us? They just kept saying that over and over. Are you going to forget us? And they said that because the people who were evacuated understood. Nobody knew that it was going to be 10 months and who knows how much longer. It could be another year, it could be 2 years, who knows. I'm saying even not knowing that it would be this long, they knew that it wasn't going to be a day. It wasn't going to be a week or two. They knew it was going to be a couple of months at least. And they also knew, again, based upon past experiences, that there's always an initial rush and that really cools down. And I told them, you're safe, you're in Jerusalem. There are a lot more people here around you that are armed, that are prepared. I said to all of them, I'm your armed response unit. I said, if anything happens, you have my number, you call me up, I'm rushing to the hotel. And as for forgetting, I said, I'm going to be here with you for as long as that takes. And again, didn't know, here we are almost 10 months later. And I'm there every week at the hotels. I have built connections to an extent that people feel comfortable enough to not only call me with various different requests, but people will call me up and say, you didn't visit our hotel this week. Where are you? We want to see you. Or the kids are asking for you. Or, so that's nice. And also, it's great to come and to want to volunteer. I do tell people, do not just show up at a hotel. Do not do that. This is their safe zone. Having people come in and day out, random people, taking pictures of them, making them sort of feel like they're in a zoo, again, with the best of intentions. Every hotel has a coordinator, generally somebody from the evacuees, not from the hotel. There's a list, and you can also ask for them in the group. And you get their number and say, hey, we would like to come visit. We'd like to bring this. We'd like whatever it is that you want to do at the hotel. And the coordinator will either say, yes, great, or no, we don't need it. Or what's important is to not push it. If the coordinator sort of seems like, I don't know that we really need that. Oh, no, but I really want to do it. Don't make them feel bad, because eventually, they'll often just say, fine, yes, you can do it. What's hardest for the people, I think, is the lack of stability, right? Not knowing what's going to happen. When can they go home? If they can go home. A lot of them, even if the war is over tomorrow in Halavai, it should be over tomorrow. There's 1,300 homes up north I'm talking about that have been either destroyed fully or partially that they can't go back home to. So it's 1,300 homes. And every day it's another 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. It's that lack of stability. And when I am able to go on a relatively regular basis, it's comforting. Sometimes I go there and I'll do a carnival, or I'll do arts and crafts, or whatever it is that they look for and want and ask me to do. Sometimes I go there and they'll ask me to do an arts and crafts, and I'll go there and people are crying and they don't want to do arts and crafts. It's fine. I just sit there, let them talk, let them vent. And that's it.
You mentioned that you feel mental health needs are cropping up now in ways that they weren't at the beginning, when it was all about basic life needs. What kinds of issues are you seeing among this community right now?
Well, first of all, it's not status quo. People often will think like, well, at least they're in hotels, so it's not so bad for them. Like, first of all, hotel is great when you're going for a 4-day visit and you're going back to your home afterwards when you chose to be there. It's not fun when you, A, didn't have a choice about it, B, don't know how long you're going to be there, C, have been there for such a long time. Like, these people don't ever want to see another hotel for the rest of their lives, You could be best friends with somebody. You could love your spouse very much. You can love your kids very much. But after 10 months of being in the same room with them, or at best having 2 adjoining rooms, right? The bigger families will get like 2 adjoining rooms, and you'll have 3 or 4 or 5 people in each room. You don't want to see them again. You have to understand sort of how deep things are and how hard things are. But you'll have spouses, you'll have parents of a married couple. The parents of that married couple will just say, listen, I need to go to a different hotel. I'm going to visit you. I'll visit you even every day, but I can't be with you 24 hours a day. or it maybe could be those married children who are saying, Mom, Dad, I need you to leave. I just need you to leave. And so again, it's not status quo. Things get harder and harder as it goes along. People fall deeper and deeper into depression. I have people who will call me up. I have a certain somebody from one of the hotels. She's in and out of hospitals for like mental health issues constantly. She didn't have it before. But she'll call me up and she'll say like, oh, I just got out of the hospital today. I would really appreciate a visit. Or today, I was meant to go over, but she says, she'll call me up and please don't come today because I'm not even leaving my room. Like I haven't left my room in 3 days. I just can't. About 3 weeks after the war started, I sort of had covered the initial logistic bases. I had time to think about, again, the mental state of the people. And somebody had donated to me a big teddy bear, a giant teddy bear, and said, here, give this to a kid. Let them enjoy. I'm sure they'll enjoy it. But I saw that teddy bear and immediately I knew this teddy bear has a higher calling. And I started something called the Teddy Bear Hug Tour. And I gathered a bunch of other teddy bears and I would go to various different hotels. And this is something I still do. And I set up the bears really nicely and have a little sign that says, give the bears a hug. I don't run after anybody. I said, this is their safe zone. Set it up nicely. And if they want to come, they'll come. If they don't have to. I thought it would be a good idea, but it surprised me by how popular it was throughout all age groups and all demographics. I would say adults enjoy it even more, get more out of it than the kids do. The kids love it. They'll come over, give a hug, throw the bear around, jump on the bear, and then 3 minutes later, they're done. The adults will sometimes hold on to the bear like a drowning person holds on to a floating device, and they'll hold on to the bear for like 35 minutes. And they cycle through the range of emotions, crying, laughing, crying again, smiling. And I thought it would be a good thing just as an emotional vent, just to give a hug, because who doesn't like hugs? But then I realized that it was sort of the gateway to uncorking not just those emotions, but the ability to then talk. Because if I'm sitting with the people, they wouldn't necessarily, certainly in those initial stages before they knew me, wouldn't necessarily open up about everything that they're going through. But through holding the bear, it became a therapeutic tool where suddenly people were talking about everything and anything. And I let them talk about everything and anything, right? This wasn't a directed discussion. You must talk about your feeling. Tell me about their childhood. And they're telling me about, not being able to get home or this, that, and the other. And that's it. So I'm still doing that now. Just did one earlier this week. I did one at the end of last week.
One thing that strikes me is that you have a lot of flexibility. You perceive your role to be quite elastic, right? And I think that takes a lot of humility. In one moment of your life, you're this kind of tough combat soldier, and now you're placing a display of teddy bears out and sitting and allowing people to really unburden themselves. What gives you that? Like, I think that what I'm seeing in you is what would be nice to see from other volunteers. A sense of, okay, what is really needed, and to not make this about my need to help, but about your needs from me.
I would attribute that to my Ima, who was amazing at a lot of different things, but she never said to people, I can only help you at the things that I'm amazing at, right? I'm a fantastic cook, or I'm a this, or it was always, what do you need? And even if I'm not that great at it, or even if it's something that I'm less interested in because it doesn't follow the thing, my interests, she wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to do that. She'd always try to the best of her abilities to help in whatever was needed. Obviously, I'm happy when I can do something that I know that I really will excel at. But again, if I go to the hotel and the kid says, listen, we want to kick the ball around, and I'm like schwitzing, I'm like, I really don't want to kick the ball around. That's what the kids want to do. So you go out and you kick the ball around. I'm a very empathetic person, and that's good and bad. It's bad because of the initial stages, sort of before I had, I guess, built up certain mental protections or whatnot, I would be devastated. I still am at times, but I think I'm a little bit better equipped now. I'm more worn, but still better equipped. But the initial stages are people are telling me terrible things that they had seen, that they'd experienced, that they're going through, whether it was things that happened because of the war, Hezbollah or Hamas, or it was spousal abuse that was going on, or whatever it was. It was just like I became the therapist, but I'm not a therapist. It was very hard for me. I came home and I was screaming into my pillow for like 20 minutes or whatever it is, or I had initially the first couple of months where my hands would just start shaking. I knew it was my body sort of dealing, or my mind dealing with a lot of the mental stress and the overload and the emotional that I was absorbing from everybody else.
Well, this is the next question that I have, which is, what has your self-care approach been for the past 9 months? How has it evolved?
smiling, laughing when you can, where you can. I love nature. So every once in a while, I need to disconnect and I go for walks, a lot of walks. I lose myself. People always say, like, well, what are you thinking about? The most random things. I let my brain sort of float away. I'm a pretty square kind of a person. People said, no, maybe you just need to smoke a joint. And I'm like, it's not me. That's not where I find my joy. I don't drink coffee or anything. I drink water. But I'll go out to nature. There's a place on Kaftet Benovenville Street where they have a little petting zoo. So I go to feed goats. I tell people all the time, you want to come feed goats with me? They all think I'm crazy. And they might think I'm crazy for a lot of reasons, but I'm like, oh, go feed goats. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's so relaxing. Relationships with people are very complicated. We live in a very complicated world. But my relationship with the goats is very simple. I go there, I bring food, and they're happy to see me. That's it. It's as simple as that. I show up and there's a mini goat stampede. So things like that keep me grounded. I try to find, whatever it is, friends, family, you find the anchors that keep you sane. And to the best of my ability, I try to stay sane, even though at points I 100% feel like I am going insane. But,
well, I think that's part of being alive right now, and doing the things that you've chosen to do. Let's talk for a minute about the manga, sci-fi, comics. I think that was one of the original posts that I saw.
Right.
I was struck by the fact that a lot of the guys who are doing this are very young. Tell me about this niche that you've carved out in terms of providing this sort of material for people.
So I'm less into these genres. When I have time to read, I tend to read nonfiction. But when I was much younger, I really, really loved these genres. And it bothered me then, like it bothers me now, that there is no place in Jerusalem where you can go. There is no comic shop here. They have secondhand bookshops, or Steinmetzky and Tzomet Sfarim will have like a very limited selection. It doesn't change often. It's usually expensive. So years ago, not connected to the war, I started this book and comic sale maybe 10 years ago or something like that in my apartment. I did it first once a year, then it was twice a year, a summer and winter sale. And at the end of every sale, like I said, I would always donate to lone soldiers, youth at risk. I'd have different organizations that I worked with on a kavua, regular basis. And I would have people who would reach out to me because they would see me posting that I'm having this sale and say, oh, I run a youth library. I run a this, I run a that. Is there any chance that you could donate some things to me? So I sort of always had done that. I always wanted to make sure that it was accessible to people. I never turn people away because they don't have money, because I was that 11, 12, 13-year-old kid who would go to Tel Aviv. I would save up money and then I would go with the money that I saved, see something I really liked, and it would always be like 15 shekel more than what I had. It would devastate me. I said, Bezat Hashem, I'll do something to be able to provide for people that can't afford those things. And I have my set prices, which I think are a great price. I don't like haggling on those prices, but if a person has a genuine need and can't afford, make sure that you get. When the war started, it was sort of a natural progression from that. I started getting phone calls from soldiers who had been to my sale, who were saying to me, I'm going to Gaza, I'm going to this, I'm going that. And I would just really love some comics. Like, it was comfort, some comics, a sci-fi book. Do you have this book? I said, sure, come over. No charge. Just take. And once I started getting more of those phone calls, I started to say, oh, you know what? Maybe this is another thing that I could do that nobody else seems to be doing that would bring comfort. And I would start going around to different bases. Of course, I wouldn't go just for that. Whether it was a barbecue or I was bringing falafels or whatever it was that I was doing, I would always have with me a box or a bag of books and comics. And I'd say, feel free to pick whatever you want. I never would just dump it on them again, which is what people tend to do. They bring things and they say, here, take. And then if the soldiers don't take, it gets thrown into the garbage. So I would never do that. I'd say, pick what you want, what you don't want, I take back with me. Same thing also within the hotels. Nicely spread it out, have the comics, have toys, have whatever it is, manga, and say, pick whatever you want. They take whatever they want and go on to the next hotel. I just thought it was another extra thing that could bring comfort and joy that nobody else was doing. That was very overlooked.
Do you think that the people in these hotels are feeling forgotten?
Some of them are. It was something that was brought up twice in the past month. We do concentrated birthdays, and because you can't have a birthday 3 times a day or whatever it is. You have so many people in small space, so you do like all the July birthdays, all the June, all the July birthdays together, and then you can really organize a nice party. So the last birthday party that I was at was everything from 1 and 2-year-olds celebrating all the way up to, I think there was like a 75-year-old man. And the 75-year-old man comes to me after the birthday party and he's crying hysterically and he gives me a hug. So I'm like, what's wrong? And he says, I want you to know that I don't take it for granted that you're still here. And the second thing, I always ask them, I always say, do you guys have your needs taken care of? And they'll say, like, in the beginning, there was a tremendous rush of, oh, I'll do yoga for you guys, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do, and it still exists. Again, still exists. People are wonderful. People are amazing. But there is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous drop off in the amount of people that are volunteering their time. And it's hard for people. Initially, right, when I took care of logistics, I would post, hey, we need this size diapers. We need, baby formula within minutes. I almost didn't even have time to press enter, and I get 10 messages of no problem, I'll take care of it. Now they'll ask for something, anything. I asked for a rummy cube, right? Took 3 weeks till somebody answered that, and somebody was very kind. I needed 3 sets, and they bought 3 sets. It was the same person. Thank you very much. But sometimes I'll post, and it went from minutes to hours to days, and now oftentimes it's weeks. And sometimes if it's something that's really urgent, I'll buy it because the lady needs baby formula. And I can't keep her waiting, but I can't afford to buy everything, by myself. It's hard. I'll keep getting people keep saying to me, we want to donate this. I'll say, we actually don't need that, but they do need baby formula. I get the hems and the haws and I'm thinking, I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. I want to emphasize once again that the overwhelming majority of people are incredible. They are flexible and they are able to pivot. But I had said in the beginning of the war, be careful with what you're spending, because I also knew that it was not going to be a short thing. And I said, do not burn through your ability to help so early on. And people did. And people will write to me and say, I'm so sorry, I can't help anymore. Because I, in the beginning, sent 40 platters of sushi and I just can't afford anything. I'm like, wow, why did you do that? I don't say that to them. I'm like, oh, it's very nice of you. But,
I think that you have a lot of emotional fortitude to be doing what you're doing. And it's pretty impressive. So thanks for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
Really excited to link people to the work you're doing and make sure that they hear about the group.
Jerusalem Helping Others. They are most welcome to check it out. And again, that's where they can post opportunities. They can check out opportunities. They can ask questions about volunteering or anything and all things related to this sort of period that we're in right now.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
ממקום קדוש ובית ומאיר גיבורים מוצאת. נפשי בבואתי תתבונני, מאין באת אנא תלכי. הנה באורך קומי אורי, ברצי גבולך התרוממי, הנה מקור בינה קורצת, וממעיין חוכמה לוקחת, וממקום קדוש ובית ומאיר גיבורים מוצאת. כי ממקור בינה קורצת, וממעיין חוכמה לוקחת, וממקום קדוש ובית ומאיר גיבורים מוצאת. מת השם מן השמיים, מת השם מן השמיים, מת השם מן השמיים. נפשי מתנומתך אורי, נפשי.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.